And it is time once again for another AEW Dynamite review here on the MrWarrenHayes Show. Hello and welcome. I'm Warren. It is Thursday. It is December the 4th. Gosh dang it. Happy holidays. Happy trail to the holidays. Road to the holidays. We're on the road to the holidays. And I hope you're excited about it. It's December. Holy Christ. Like the year's almost over. And it feels like it practically just started. This year just blinked by for your boy. But nonetheless, regardless, we're not doing any big year recaps here. We're just going to recap an episode of AEW Dynamite, one that happened on December 3rd, 2023, at the Fischers Event Center in Fischers, Indiana. And here's something that doesn't happen very often. Juno appearing on screen. I think she's on screen. I don't know if she's exactly on frame, but she's right here. And I'm giving her scratches because she came up to ask for scratches. So I'm giving her scratches as we're talking. But here's something else we don't talk about very often these days. And here's something else that we don't talk about very often these days in regards to AEW this time. But an improvement in attendance in the same market/venue from the last time that they came to that same market or venue. Specifically here, of course, we're talking about the Fischers Event Center. 3,096 people had shown up for Dynamite the last time they were here, which was in 2024 on December 4th. This time, a year later, practically to the day, same building, same venue, 3,380 tickets were distributed. So that's not something we hear. That's not good news that we hear very often. Usually it will, when it comes to Dynamite, it will be dips. It will not be as strong. Now, well, in this case here in Fischers, Indiana, they're hungry for more. They were hungry for more AEW Dynamite, and AEW Dynamite was proud to be able to deliver. Proud. I'm sure they were proud. At the very least, they were happy. That's for sure. I mean, that's good news. Now, the question is this a fluke or a trend? Well, we'll have to keep an eye on all of this. As for the show itself, well, I'm pretty much at the same place I was last week, where I am extremely thankful that we had the Continental Classic and the Continental Classic matches to carry these episodes of Dynamite, because I was bored by most everything else that happened on the show. Anything that wasn't related to the C2, I was not into it. I really was not. We've started to see this for the past couple of years, and I think it's really a thing. And I think it's really a thing. I'm trying to say too many things at once, so we'll start by getting the principal information out. And frankly, look, I'm starting to buy into the fact that, during the NFL season, Tony Khan is admittedly more hands-off, and the creative in his company suffers. I legitimately believe that. Like, he made a point of it. I believe it was this year, right? Where he said, when he started talking, well, look, during the NFL season, I'm not there as much, whatever the quote was, he basically was saying, when the Jags are playing, I'm not as hands-on as I usually am. And like he said that, I think in February or something, when the Jags obviously didn't make it to the playoffs. He said, all right, I'm back. I'm more hands-on. I'm getting everything back, under control. And then he didn't say it that way, but that's what it meant. And it felt like the creative aspect of AEW suddenly really tightened up. Things started improving, started getting really, really better, and carried into All In with arguably an incredible strip of really compelling, creative, great storylines and great matches on top of that. Like we had a really good run of AEW stuff in that period. And then the closer we got to NFL season, things started feeling a little off again. And to me, they've been feeling off for a few weeks, and we're always excluding the pay-per-views, right? The pay-per-views are in their own little bubble. We're talking about the week-to-week television. There's the creative just feels weak. And is this a direct cause of Tony Khan not being around? Maybe. But I promise you, like if he comes back around like in February 2026 and says, "All right, guys, I'm back," and I've rolled up my sleeves and both of my hands are deep into this. Well, I mean, it's going to be proof positive. It's going to be proof positive that whoever Tony delegates the creative to while he's dealing with whatever day to day his job at the Jaguars is, they're not, it's not delivering. There's a problem because I don't think the creative outside of what's happening in the C2, which is very, very simple creative. You just have to put on really strong matches. I don't think anything else is like truly compelling. I don't think there's anything that's really exciting. Anyway, we'll get into it bit by bit. And we're going to do like we did last week, like we're going to do throughout the tournament, and that is run down. Start by talking about all of the Continental Classic matches that happened on Dynamite. Then maybe even recap the tournament a little bit to see where we're at. So we'll do that, and then we'll move on to the rest of the show. But let's get to it. Kazuchika Okada defeated Pac in a Gold League match. Okada earns his first 3 points of the tournament. I thought this was a good match. I thought it was intense enough. I thought it was pretty good, but I never felt this match hit a second gear. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed the stretch, where we're doing ace crushers and the Okada drop kicks, and the German suplexes from Pac and all of that, the brain buster, the brutalizer, and the brutalizer reversal into the pin by Okada. I enjoyed the match. I guess my expectations were higher. Was I wrong to have high expectations for this match? No, I don't think so. And I think anyone who's lowering their expectations is complicit in a bit of a problem where it's like, look, you have two guys who we know if they wrestle each other will have a great match, decide to, I don't want to say mail it in because that's not what they did, because the work was there. They just didn't bring it forward. They didn't push forward. They didn't give us anything like truly excellent. And I think with two wrestlers of the caliber of Okada and Pac put into this environment where they are expected to wrestle and make the wrestling the story, it underdelivered for me. And I think I think it's a fair critique that it underdelivered, and but nonetheless was a good match. Like, it's a 3.5 star match. It's not anything. I'm definitely not sitting here trashing it and saying it was trash, because that's what you do when you trash. I'm going to do that to a match later on in the evening, or a match that happened later on in the evening. It's going to happen, and the trashing is going to happen in this review. But it was good, but that's just about it. Like, a 3.5 star for me for Okada versus Pac is underwhelming. It doesn't make, like, it doesn't quite register to me. It should be better than that. So Okada is on the board in the Blue League with his first 3 points. Then Kyle Fletcher defeated Kevin Knight in another Gold League match. This was fantastic. This was so much fun. Some great back and forth, but to begin with, but quickly, Kevin Knight becomes the guy who is dictating the pace of the match. He's guiding Kyle Fletcher through the match to the point where, unfortunately, I'm looking at the match and having watched a lot of wrestling in my time, I'm like, okay, Kevin Knight is going to lose this match because he's getting so much offense and he's getting all of his shit in, and Kyle is just giving and giving. An extremely generous match from Kyle Fletcher. And with reason, because Kevin Knight is tremendous. And so far, we're very early in, like we're starting like the second round of competition in the Continental Classic. Kevin Knight has been taking these opportunities by the throat and is making sure that if he's not going to win his league, his block, which he probably won't, let's be honest, he's going to make sure that he's in a conversation at the end of him being a standout, being an MVP. He has been phenomenal so far. I spoke about it last week, and I'll reiterate the same point. He, coming into AEW, didn't have as much fan following or awareness that maybe a Speedball Mike Bailey did when he joined AEW, which was pretty much around the same time. A lot of AEW fans were already aware of Speedball. New Speedball was great, and we're excited to see them. Kevin Knight, we had to be sold. When I say we, I mean AEW fans who weren't aware of him, who maybe didn't see his work in New Japan. They had to be sold on him, and probably even some of us who were aware of his work in New Japan said we probably were like, well, is he ready for American television? Does he have the stuff? Because Kevin Knight could be very good, and then he could have some off nights, and we really saw a progression in Knight's career while he was in New Japan. And a lot of us were curious as to how he was going to be able to translate that to primetime TV AEW. And I think his team with Mike Bailey has been a brilliant way to get him over. And I think this tournament so far has served one purpose right now, and that is to introduce Kevin Knight, the singles competitor, to the AEW audience. And I think the AEW audience is waking up to to all of the things that really make him a great performer, a lot of fun to watch, that a lot of us had seen back when he was working New Japan. Particularly, like he particularly shined in the Best of Super Junior tournaments. That was always a moment where you were like, this will be a good one. This will be good at the very least, right? And so far, like, no signs of him being uneven. He has been absolutely terrific. This has been this was a great match with a really fun final segment with a lot of kickouts of big moves and flash pins that people really bought into. Man, the audience were on their feet cheering for Kevin Knight throughout this match. This has been an extremely successful Kevin Knight experiment so far. I really enjoyed it. I'd give it a 3 3/4 star match. Great dramatic sequence at the end with finally Fletcher landing the brainbuster to put Kevin Knight away. And then there's the post-match stuff, but we'll get to that later. And in our last Continental Classic match of the night, Claudio Castagnoli defeated Jon Moxley in the Blue League, earning 3 points. Oh, I forgot to mention, with his victory, of course, Kyle Fletcher is now at 6 points. He's the first participant of the Gold League to make it to 6. And now Claudio Castagnoli is on the same level. He scores another 3 points by defeating Jon Moxley, and that brings him to 6 on the blue side. This was excellent. This was so good. This was so much fun. This was exactly what I hoped this match would be. Like somewhere between some, the mat wrestling that Mox really likes, and then just like the grittiness that also defines Mox, and that Claudio is more than capable of throwing in as well, right? Like Claudio might end up having a really sneaky great final quarter of 2025. I think he's been tremendous, and I don't think a lot of people have been talking about it all that much. I think he's been above average, like a Claudio average. A Claudio average, which is an average, which is above, most people's best. That's where Claudio's average is. Like, I think he's even surpassing himself. I really enjoyed his match with Gran Guerrero. I'm really excited for the match that he's going to have against Ultimo Guerrero, which from what I understand is a match that Claudio has been dreaming of for a long time. Like this is a thing that Claudio's like, I want to fight Ultimo Guerrero one day, and he's going to get his wish. Like, it's going to happen in a couple of weeks, right on in Arena Mexico. So I think he's been phenomenal. I mean, we're not going to reiterate and drive home the point once again that I think Jon Moxley is having one of his best career years I think he's been absolutely phenomenal. We don't have to hammer that point home again. But look, we had the blood, we had the grittiness, we had the big exchanges, we had the grappling, but then we also had like the brutality, the pummeling. After all, Claudio wins the match with a running fucking uppercut, right? That's how he wins the match. Just a flash pin out of nowhere, and I fucking love it. That's what we should be seeing more of. Like two guys going into a match where they're just pulling each other apart. They're falling, they're coming apart at the seams. Just a gritty, hard-hitting match. Then wham! Just one perfectly placed move, and that calls the match. I love this. And you know a guy like Mox was into it. Mox, who's who's into the MMA style, who likes that kind of stuff. Like for him, a match ending on one big well-placed strike makes perfect sense to him. So look, I thought this was an excellent match. Gritty, power-based, just two guys trying to get the best out of each other so that they could beat the other guy at their best. No turns, no silly nonsense. Again, like the online fans have created the headcanon that the Death Riders are going to kick Mox out. And I'm still wondering. I'm still here asking myself, why? Why would you do it? The Death Riders have been on such a roll. They've been so good for months now. Why would you why would you go around now? I'm not talking like in January earlier this year where everyone was in agreement. It's like, pull the plug on this bullshit, right? I'm talking now. Why would you kill this now? Why would you get rid of Mox? Why would you make Mox? Why would you exit Mox out of this group? I don't understand why you do the breakup, but fans want the breakup. I don't know why. I don't know what the impetus here is. So I still don't buy it. I know there's been signs, there's been looks, and look, the Death Rider, like the MO is that they'll strike they'll strike at Mox when he's least expecting it, when we're least expecting it, and it's going to be a shock, right? That's the whole idea. So I can appreciate that they're not completely leaning in to this idea that there's dissent and that that maybe they're planning something to eject Mox. You know what I'm talking about, how pro wrestling does it, when people start exchanging looks to each other and, doing backhanded shit on camera. That kind of stuff is not happening. And I appreciate that because it means that, AEW is not taking me for a complete imbecile. However, I still have trouble latching onto it because I don't see the Death Riders continue on without Mox. People say Claudio can lead. No. I love Claudio, but he's not a front man. The same thing with Pac. It doesn't make sense. It would have to be someone coming in from out of nowhere to take over, or the Death Riders just split apart, which I think would be terrible, quite frankly. But it can't be someone from the existing group becoming the next leader of the Death Riders, because then the Death Riders automatically become a mid-card act. They no longer have that aura of danger. They're just, they become like the Bloodline. It becomes like a Bloodline type of situation where you get rid of Roman as the leader and you put Solo Sikoa in, right? It's not the same Bloodline anymore. It's not a main event Bloodline. It's not a frightening Bloodline. It's just, as everyone likes to point out and make fun of, it's the Temu Bloodline. So do you want a Temu Death Riders? No, you don't. You don't want a Temu Death Riders. And maybe they have a brilliant piece of creative just waiting in the background to be pulled at the perfect moment. But like anything in pro wrestling, if you do a shock turn, a shock moment for the sake of shocking people and have no follow-up, then there's no use to it. Then you're just doing Triple H booking, where it's just like, we're going to get people talking, but we won't have any follow-up. So yes, it would be fascinating and compelling to see the Death Riders kick Mox out in very, very violent fashion, but would it be interesting? Would it be good? Anyway, I still don't see it, but I will say this. It seems to me that over the past couple of weeks, they've been, particularly Mox in his post-match promos and whatnot, he does seem to be coming across a little more sympathetic. Are they gently setting in a babyface turn for him to make him babyface again? Maybe. But then again, I'm also a guy who, even when he was at his worst, I agreed with what Jon Moxley would say. I'd sit here and I'd point at you guys after a Jon Moxley promo where we talk about tearing AEW down and rebuilding it. And I'm like, yes, let him do it. It's like, he's right. He's right, So I've always been more naturally on his side. Maybe that's the vibe I'm getting, and like the vibe that I'm getting is just the vibe that I've always had in regards to Mox as the leader of the Death Riders. Anyway, so as of today, here are the standings. As of today, December 4, 2025. These are the standings for the Blue League. Claudio Castagnoli is on top with 6 points. Konosuke Takeshita and Jon Moxley both have 3 points apiece, and Orange Cassidy, Mascara Dorado, and Roderick Strong all have 0. On the Gold League side, we have Kyle Fletcher with 6 points. Kevin Knight, Kazuchika Okada, and Pac all tied at 3. And Darby Allin and Mike Bailey both have the goose egg. And will Darby Allin still be in the tournament? Apparently he was hospitalized last week. Apparently it is not a work, that it is indeed a thing. So they're clearly going, that's probably why we only had 3 C2 matches as opposed to last week. This is probably why we only had the 3 C2 matches on Dynamite this week. They're probably stretching out as far as they can be to really assess, can Darby come back or not, as opposed to, forfeiting his matches or alternating him. Darby is perfectly capable of altering himself. So we'll see how all that comes down. The next matches that we have are for the December 6th edition of Collision, where we will have Claudio Castagnoli versus Mascara Dorada in the Blue League, as well as Konosuke Takeshita versus Jon Moxley. I'm kind of shocked that they're doing this on Collision, but you got my attention. And I didn't see announced Orange Cassidy versus Roderick Strong. I felt like they were going to do it on Collision, but they didn't announce it, so maybe it was just me. And there'll probably be a Gold League match added to that Collision lineup. So there you go. I'd say not as great a week of C2 action as we got last week, but still good. Still not bad. All right, let's break down the rest of the show then, which opened up with an in-ring promo with Samoa Joe and Eddie Kingston. They're both in the ring. It's really a promo off, which I thought was a tremendous idea. I've said multiple times here how great Eddie Kingston is on the mic and why he should be talking. Why aren't they having him talk more than they are? And Samoa Joe, of course, is a great S-tier promo himself. So I was very excited to this and the result was fine. I thought it was good. But then again, it's not unlike my expectations for the Okada Pac match. My expectation is that these guys are going to eviscerate each other verbally. 2 guys who can absolutely do it. But it turned out that it was well done. Very, very good stuff. But maybe fell a little under what I was expecting. So is that a bad thing? Well, no, because it didn't stink. It was far from bad. Like so far away from being bad. But I don't know. I guess I kind of expected more. Maybe the joke's on me. Maybe what I start to need to do, boys and girls, is start lowering my expectations. You think I said, no, that's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. Joe calls back to Eddie being a perpetual failure, that he's a guy who always talked about his potential but never fulfilled it. And he said, basically saying that he always hangs out with the losers. What did he say? What does the third place steak taste like? I was like, I don't know. It's probably still pretty good. I was like, what's so bad about the third place steak? It's unless it's like cooked to shit, like it's cooked super well done and it's drenched in ketchup, something that the president of the United States would eat. Unless it's like that, I'm like, nah, it sounds fine to me. Anyway, and Kingston, of course, fires back and basically saying, look, Joe, you were the guy that was credited for saving the Indies back in the day. You're probably the greatest Ring of Honor champion of all time. And now you've become everything that you used to rail about back in the day. And I'm going to expose you if you don't bring your fighting spirit. So it got me hyped for next week. It got me a little more excited. I'm still apprehensive about how capable Eddie is. Eddie is very hit and miss in, healthy now that he's back from a severe injury. Let's not sugarcoat anything here. Came back from a really bad injury. What does a post-injury Eddie Kingston look like in 2025? We're going to find out next week. We get an Ops promo backstage where everyone sort of throws in their stuff, where Hook says he's going to, he says that Joe is going to finish Eddie Kingston. Powerhouse Hobbs hypes their match later on in the evening. And Shibata says some stuff in Japanese. So, yeah, there you go. Following that, we get another backstage promo, this time from Mark Briscoe. He's holding the TNT Championship, reflecting on his history with Daniel Garcia. And he says Garcia slipping into a Death Rider's death spiral and challenges Garcia to a TNT Championship on the Winter is Coming show. Briscoe was very good here, by the way, as is the case usually. And look, do I have to start talking about Daniel Garcia still being booked as, the young upstart? Do I still have to do that? I hope not. You can listen to that from last week's show. Then we get another backstage promo where we've got Ricochet with the demand. Ricochet hypes up his match with Dalton Castle on Ring of Honor at Final Battle. Not Death Before Dishonor. Final Battle, which is this week. Did you guys know that? Honest to God, be honest here. Before you watch this episode of Dynamite, did you know there was a Ring of Honor pay-per-view this weekend? Probably not, is what I would say. And he also says that he's going to have an open challenge, a charity title shot, as he put it, on Collision this week. So, there you go. Hey, how about another backstage promo? Renee Paquette at the conglomeration. I don't think this one happened like within this block here, right? The ops, the Mark Briscoe and Ricochet promos, they all happen within like the same block. So I think the conglomeration Roderick Strong stuff happened after, and Mark Briscoe is there with the group, basically pointing out that the conglomeration all have none of them have won their matches in the C2 so far, but it doesn't matter. And then the next match coming is OC versus Roderick Strong, OC Orange Cassidy and Roderick Strong, and there's going to be a winner here. Obviously, Roderick Strong says, "I'm not part of the conglomeration. God damn it." Everyone sort of brushes it off, especially Orange Cassidy, who's like, well, yeah, but we're going to, and then he says something, I'm like, hopefully this is a joke. Just a joke, an Orange Cassidy joke, and we can move on. But he says we're going to do our C2 match under conglomeration rules, which means no chops, which I can understand Orange Cassidy making a joke about, because essentially he doesn't want to get his chest blistered up by Roderick Strong, who was an extremely hard hitter. I can understand that. But the C2 should be very well protected in that regard, right? Isn't this the tournament where it's like no nonsense and whatnot? Well, adding a stipulation where there's no chops to be given in the match is nonsense and takes away from the spirit of the tournament. And I hope they don't I hope it's just a joke. But knowing AEW these days, it might not be. And that'll piss me off. It'll just piss me off. It'll piss me off if there's supplementary goofy rules, no chops in this match. Fuck off. Like, can't we just get can't we just like go into this tournament and not have like weird rules and confusing shit? Just keep it pure. Just keep it exactly what it's supposed to be, right? Anyway, we get some footage of Darby Allin in hospital. It's made me a little uncomfortable because frankly, because he really is in hospital. It wasn't like a gimmicked hospital. He really was like in a hospital bed, and he has like he's got a neck brace around his neck, like a legit one, and he's plugged up to machines. I'm like, I don't want to see this. Why are you showing me this? I don't want to see, Darby Allin suffering in hospital. Oh. Then we get the Fletcher Kevin Knight match, which leads us to the Don Callis family in-ring segment, where the Don Callis family, some of them come out, mostly being Don and, of course, Kyle Fletcher is there. His match just finished. And Hechicero and Josh Alexander, who still have the duffel bags full of money, which I think is both funny and dumb at the same time, because why would they still be carrying, like, what was it, $1 million? Why would they still be carrying it in fucking duffel bags? Go deposit the money, or better yet, spend it. Just don't walk around with it in fucking duffel bags. That's kind of dumb. That's the kind of stuff that just it breaks my suspension of disbelief, because now they're using it as something to sort of dangle in front of the Bucks, right? Because that's what they do here. That's the entire point of this segment, to dangle in front of the Bucks. Say, hey, we have your money, but money in 2025 is virtual. It doesn't exist. Like, you don't need bills, like dollar bills anymore. You don't need to feel the coins in your fingers anymore with money. Money is air now. It's data. It doesn't. Who gives a shit about the duffel bags? It's like having big sacks of cash. It's like in Looney Tunes at this point, where it's like, you don't need this shit anymore. None of it it doesn't make sense. It doesn't correlate with me, and it feels, it feels disconnected. It feels like an old man's view of how millions of dollars should be transferred and carried around, right? At the very least, pull out the briefcases, right? Pull out the bulletproof military grade briefcases and put the money in there. But then don't, because you'll probably want to use the briefcases as weapons. So scratch that idea. I take that. I remove that idea away from the universe. Anyway, the Bucks hit the ring. They super kick Hechicero and Josh Alexander, and they BTE trigger Kyle Fletcher. And then all out of nowhere comes Kazuchika Okada, who does not hesitate in rainmakering Matt. Nick is sort of like, what the fuck are you doing, man? We're supposed to be friends. And Alexander and Hechicero then hop back in, and then everyone gets in on the beatdown. Jurassic Express come in for the save. Jack Perry moonsaults to the floor. Okada kicks Luchasaurus in the nuts. El Clone comes in to take care of Jack Perry. And then Kenny Omega hits the ring, and he does a V-trigger to Mark Davis, basically saves the day, does a dragon suplex to Okada, and the babyfaces stand tall to end the segment. if you're seeing what I'm seeing, that we're probably leading to like a trios match, Don Callis family versus Kenny and the Bucks at World's End. That would be my guess. It's kind of become clear to me that the reason that they decided to turn the Young Bucks babyface again is so that they could work with Kenny Omega. I still feel like with the way they've been handling Kenny Omega for ever since he returned from injury, Kenny Omega cannot go as much as he used to. And he himself said recently, if I'm going into the ring, it's to have Kenny Omega style matches. And if I can't do that anymore, well, it's going to be time for me to hang it up. He said something to that effect. That's not a direct quote, but that's essentially what he was saying. But at the same time, AEW, so if AEW is not in a position to put Kenny Omega in big singles matches or wants to save him for really important big singles matches as opposed to him working singles matches over and over again, the best thing to do is to put him in situations where he can share the workload with a tag team partner or two tag team partners. So I really think that the Bucks turn back to babyface is to help accommodate having Kenny Omega on television more, which is a criticism that I've had over the past few months. And I think that's a good thing. I think AEW is better off having Kenny Omega part of the fabric of the company as opposed to being on the outside looking in, which is how it's felt. So if this is how we get Kenny Omega back in, maybe test the waters to see how far he's capable and ready to go as far as in-ring work goes, that's fine. I'm okay with it. The downside here is that the Bucks are baby faces again. There was no reason to turn them babyface outside of this situation, this specific need, because they were phenomenal as heels. I love the heel Bucks. I will prefer them to the babyface Bucks every single day of the week. There was nothing outside of outside of bringing Kenny Omega back regularly on TV and into wrestling matches in an environment where he can share the work with others. That is legitimately the only reason that could happen. So we're going to have to deal with it. We're going to have to deal with the Bucks no longer being heels, and that kind of stinks. Speaking of stinks, the Timeless Love Bombs defeat Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir in a hardcore holiday death match. I have no use for this. This can go fucking fly a kite. I know, go fly a kite is probably the least aggressive thing I could say, but I did put a euphemism in front of it to hopefully add some gravitas to how much I want them to go fly some fucking kites, as opposed to giving us this fucking slop, this 2016 WWE holiday mashed potato throwing fucking slop. Now, I know there's a segment of you all right now who don't like this. I know, because you've told me. You've said what I've heard your criticisms on that front, where it's like, well, whenever Warren sees something that resembles what WWE does, well, then he calls it as they're copying WWE. And I understand that, but you are hard pressed here to make an argument, a compelling argument that proves the complete opposite to me. This is 100% a WWE holiday themed hardcore match, complete with gimmicked up objects, right? The candy cane with barbed wire, the gold sprayed chair, and all of this fucking nonsense. The gifts strewn around on the floor, the tables with tablecloths, with festive tablecloths on it. And we're having Santa coming back. Christmas is still 3 fucking weeks away. It's still 3 weeks away. Why are we doing holiday stuff at this point to begin with? And all of this hampered the match because everyone wanted to be cute. Everyone want to be funny about this. And I swear to God, you go back and you watch anything that WWE was doing in the mid 2000s, right up to the 2020s, with their, the Thanksgiving shit with the turkey and everyone's throwing mashed potatoes and gravy, and then they do the Christmas brawl where people are throwing big oversized gift boxes at each other. This is the exact same shit, and yet I'm supposed to sit here and say, "Oh, bravo! Such a great stipulation. How creative! How fun!" No, it's not. No, it's not. And the thing is that it's such the thing on top of it all. Even after showing that it's just a clone of things that used to happen in WWE is exactly that. It used to happen in WWE. They don't even do this shit anymore. So not only are we aping the other guys, but we're aping things that they haven't done in years. And I'm supposed to be here and sit here and say, well, yeah, it was fun, and Tony Storm and Luther came back. Luther. I couldn't give a fuck about Luther. I don't care about Luther. I didn't even realize he was gone. That's how much Luther was significant to this act. In my eyes, I didn't even realize he was gone. I was like, this is fine. Tony Storm is great. And now he's back and everyone's happy. He comes back in the Santa suit. And then they do a thing where his, there's a hole under the gift he's carrying in the box where he's supposed to present the gift to whoever the fuck, Megan Boehner, whoever. And they're supposed to open the box, but it's his hand that's flipping her off. And that didn't even work. They botched that. It's just a fucking complete mess. It's just a complete mess. And ultimately, here's the thing. What do we always say? At least I always say, is that AEW is at its best when it does things that the other guys can't do. And when AEW, once again, proving my point last night, when AEW tries to do what the others do, it comes off as cheap, uncreative, derivative, and it fails. Are we ready to say that this women's tag team tournament stunk? Are we ready to talk about this? That it hasn't been good, despite having such high expectations for it and high hopes. Not even expectations, high hopes that I was excited for. I was looking forward to it. I was loving the build to this, right? You can go back and listen to what I was talking about, where they were putting all these teams together all throughout the summer. And I was like, oh man, they're creating a division. This is going to be really good. And they tripped all over themselves on this one. And just went to their worst, their worst fucking instincts and pulling out things that WWE even these days doesn't even do. They don't even do this shit anymore. They don't even do this shit. Because the only guy it amused was Vince McMahon. He was the only guy that thought it was funny when people would throw each other, would fight each other and throw mashed potatoes at each other. He's the only guy who thought it was funny. So what's the next thing? What's the next big idea that AEW is going to do? Are they going to have Samoa Joe, challenge Hangman Page to a match, an impromptu match on Dynamite? And Hangman Page's music is going to start and people are going to think that they're going to get a match. But instead of it being Hangman Page, it's going to be a mini Hangman who's going to come to the ring and everyone's going to slap their knees. And because that's a really creative idea too, right? Right? This is all great stuff. This is all great stuff that we can do. My main issue is that, because here's the thing, right? There will be people who will say, you always compare it to WWE, but it's also a wrestling thing. It's things that happen in wrestling. No. It's a thing that happened in WWE, and then that people have decided to copy, and that's always been the thing. It's a thing that happens in WWE, not in wrestling. Harley Race never threw mashed potatoes in a guy's face. You know, Bruiser Brody never started beating up a guy with, a barbed wired candy cane with plastic barbed wire on top of that, right? This is not like a wrestling thing. It's a WWE thing. What are you aping? You're aping things that WWE brought into the consciousness that people now think this is a part of wrestling when it's a part of WWE. It's WWE. Anyway, I got to move on because it really does make me upset. And this man, I got nothing. They're setting up a match with Chris Statlander and Jamie Hayter taking on the Sisters of Sin. Who would have thought that Tekla would be such a good talker? Tekla's a really good talker. I'm pleasantly surprised. This is great. So that's coming down the road. That's cool. We get the Dark Order getting ready for their trios match against the Ops, and they run into Hangman because I don't know. The Dark Order, the Dark Order hasn't been on AEW television since May. Okay? They are persona non grata. They do not exist in this version of AEW anymore. And seeing those three on TV was this is another era. This is not, they don't belong here. I have nothing personally against these guys. It's the act, I'm looking at them and I'm like, they don't belong here. And then they run into Hangman, right? They run into Hangman, which they do have a history with, but this history is irrelevant because the Dark Order are irrelevant on Dynamite. It doesn't matter. So, this was for the lore sickos who were they ran into each other again. And there's still tension from the last few times anyway. The Dark Order. The fuck are we doing, the Dark Order? When Hobbs was talking about it, hyping the match, I forgot to mention this. He says, we're going to take out the Dark Order. I'm like, what? What? Who cares? Who cares? Who could possibly care? I'll tell you who didn't care about the Dark Order. The people in Fischers, Indiana. Because they didn't give a fuck when the Dark Order came out. Yeah, there was a couple of guys doing the claw. Couple of them. The audience, the cameras really zoomed in on those, but who cares about the Dark Order in 2025? What are we doing here? We're backstage again. Renee Paquette interviews Mercedes Moné, who is, who puts over her world titles, brags about being a global icon and the Pro Wrestling Illustrated #1 of the Pro Wrestling Illustrated #1 wrestler. She said she's #1 of the women's lifts of the 250. I mean, kudos regardless. Yeah, that's fine. She's the heel. She can do whatever kind of heat she wants. She said she's the #1 wrestler. That's fine with me. She's the #1 in my heart. That's fine. And then she says she's going to show up on Ring of Honor TV before her match with Red Velvet at Final Battle for the TV title. And I'm just sitting there slack-jawed wondering why. It's the TV title, right? Yeah. Why? Just had a brain fart there, but yeah. But I'm sitting there slack-jawed wondering why did we have the reunification match on Dynamite then and not just have it on Final Battle? It's a Ring of Honor gimmick. It's their title. But we did the reunification thing on AEW Dynamite. FTR and Stokely cut a promo on the Bang Bang Gang. Cash calls them Billy's Boy and Mr. Storm, which I appreciated. And so, yeah, they basically run them down. Then we get the Dark Order versus the Ops, which is basically a glorified enhancement match. I don't know. I guess the important part is that after the brawl, the Hangman runs in with the chain. He clips Hobbs with it. Shibata tackles him. There's chaos, and Hangman has a bottle, and he uses it over Hobbs' head because Hobbs accidentally takes out Shibata, and security fails to contain Hangman, and Hangman attacks security, and then there's more of the Ops dojo, and I don't know. Hook disappeared after the match because they had the Hobbs dojo escort him out. This is what we're doing with Hangman. I don't know. We got to wrap this review up because, like I said, I was bored. There's a lot of things that I didn't like here, and that was one of them. Don Callis, Okada, and Fletcher are backstage. Okada blames Takeshita for failing them last week, which is tremendous. What I like here is how much of a hate on Okada has for Takeshita, which is tremendous. And they basically saying it's Takeshita's fault and he's not here again this week. And then Callis starts making up excuses where he says, well, he's in heavy training for his C2 match coming up. And then Takeshita just walks in and is like, nah, I'm right here, which creates more tension and so on and so forth. Look, this is still one of the high points of AEW. This Okada Takeshita rivalry. It's so much fun. Then Hangman Page gets a promo backstage. He's angry. He's going to get his world title back. He's pissed that Hook cost him the title. This is his first promo that he cut in this circumstance since losing the title, right? So he addresses it, and he says he's going to take the title back, whether it's from Eddie or from Joe. And that winner is coming. He'll have backup. Can all assume it's Swerve. And there you go. I think that pretty much wraps everything up. Oh, right, there was the bit where Renee Paquette, the funny bit with Renee Paquette, where she was there to share John Moxley's mindset, and they basically commentary throws it to her, and she says, earlier today I spoke to John Moxley, and I'm like, well, I hope the hell you did. And what did he have to say? Don't worry, I'm gonna go pick up our kid from daycare. Do you want Chipotle on the way back? I can pick up some Culvers on the way back if you'd like. Anyway, that was Dynamite. Yeah, we're in the Jags section of the year here. The Jaguars section of the year, where Tony Khan is off doing other things, and creative feels scattered and not good and unfocused and uninspired. It happens. It's been happening for the past 2 years, and here we are again. So, once again, God bless the Continental Classic. And if AEW didn't rely on all that much on stories as it does, if it didn't feel like it had to cater to all the haters on Twitter who incessantly would accuse AEW of not having stories, if it didn't feel like they had to cater to them and now have to ensure that everything that shows up on AEW TV has to have a story, I think we'd have a different TV show that would probably be a lot more cohesive, oddly enough. That's just me. Because look, just focus on the C2, focus on the guys telling stories and matches, and it's been terrific. And the stuff around it hasn't been as terrific. Anyway, that's my review of this week's Dynamite. Oh, and they also announced really quickly. They also announced that we're gonna have the Dirty Dozen Battle Royal, the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal, right? For the fucking ring, right? So I guess that means Max is on his way back in a couple of weeks, and I'm very excited because this show really needs an injection of Maxwell Jacob Friedman right now. It needs an injection of all their top guys. It really fucking does. So there you go. We're done. I don't know why I'm thinking. That wraps up the review. Thank you everyone for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or a 5-star rating on Spotify. If you're listening to this on Thursday, I will be streaming later tonight. If not, well, have fun. Have a great weekend, everyone. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me, and I will see you next time.